Hello, good day, my esteemed viewers. If you are new to the channel, kindly like, share, subscribe, and please do not forget to hit the notification bell. Let us look at this one coming from P2B. Of course, we understand that P2B was the presidential candidate of the Labour Party in the 2023 presidential election. And the way it is, P2B seems to be dashing the hope of the Fulani, of course, precisely Atiku. But let me read from the Vanguard newspaper. It's a 2027, I will contest on Labour Party platform, say P2B. He go further to say that the presidential candidate of the Labour Party in the 2023 elections, P2B, has assured his supporters that he will contest the 2027 presidential election on the party's platform. Obi made this known while addressing some of his supporters in a viral video circulating on social media on Saturday. Asked which party he will intends to contest the 2027 elections, Obi said, I will still continue to run in the Labour Party. I am a member of the Labour Party. At this point, I think it's becoming clear that the coalition Atiku is spearheading, he may not have Obi in that coalition. We understand that someone like the former governor of Kaduna State, talking about Nasir El-Rufai, and Atiku can be in the forefront, forming a coalition to us Tinubu out of office come 2027. And the way it is, Obi seems to hold the magic wand to determine where the pendulum will swing. We understand that even before the 2023 presidential election, Obi was touted not to have structure. But surprisingly, Obi made a very big inroad into the South, Southeast, Southwest, and some of the northern states in that election. In that election, of course, specifically in Delta State, where Dr. Ifeanyi Okowa was the governor and the vice presidential candidate to Atiku, Obi actually won him in his ward. He won him in his local government, and even won Delta State. I think the same thing was applicable in Edo State, where Obi swept the state in that election. Even in Lagos here, that is seen as the base of the Jagaban himself. Talking about Asiwaju Ahmed Bola Tinubu, Obi won convincingly in Lagos State, Obi won in Abuja, Obi won in Plateau, Obi won in so many other places in the Middle Belt. So the way it is, going into 2027 election, Obi is the man to look out for. Because the way it is, if Obi is not in that coalition, of course, I think Atiku should forget anything about winning that election. But let me quickly say that Obi is eminently qualified to govern this country. So if you are looking at coalition, I think Obi should be given an opportunity to fly the flag of whatever platform they are using to fund the coalition, because Obi has what it takes to sail the ship of Nigeria to safety. Because Obi is someone who canvass about production in the country. Apart from Obi, no other candidate in that 2023 was particular about how you can move Nigeria from production to consumption, from consumption to production. And let's even assume that this government of Senator Ahmed Bola Tinubu was at the corner listening to him. But all the while, we have not seen any conscious effort from this government to make sure that they move the country away from consumption into production. And of course, I think that is one of the major problems we have in this country, because we are not productive. Our economy is mainly dependent on importation. And not just importation, we have even refused to diversify the economy. We are operating on a mono economy, talking about the crude. And that is giving our economy a serious blow. It has exposed the economy to volatility in so many fronts. We saw how even in Ukraine, that is in war situation, rose to the occasion to send out grain the other time. And that is not healthy for an economy of over 200 something million people. I think we need someone like P2B to drive the process of governance, particularly the economy, because this is someone who has been proven to be prudent in resource management. We understand how he did it while he was the governor of Anambra State. You cannot take it away from him when it comes to prudent management of resources. I think you give it to P2B. We have seen so many even political leaders attesting to this. We saw the governor of course, the governor of Plateau State, even if he is not a member of P2B's party, and some other northern governors who have come out to testify that yes, you may like P2B, you may not like his face, but this is someone who have the interests of the country at heart, who have what it takes to drive the country to good direction. But going into the 2027, of course, I understand that the Fulanis are already seriously strategizing. we have the likes of Kwankwaso, of course, the leader of Kwankwasia movement and a member of New Nigerian People's Party. It is not yet clear where he hoped to pitch a tent. Some people have touted that he's likely going to join his brothers in the coalition, but there are another speculation that is talking about maybe Atiku dropping his current vice president, talking about Shetima, and maybe substitute him with Kwankwaso for the purpose of 2027 presidential election. Let me quickly say that the coalition that Atiku is spearheading, if it have will be another major stakeholders, is going to be a game changer for that 2027. There's no doubt about that. But again, it was when Atiku saw that coalition had the capacity to destabilize his own plan for 2027. We saw how he made a very big move and inroad into opposition political parties, particularly the PDP. For the first time in the history of this national democracy, we saw a governor, the former governor of Delta State, moving all their party structures into APC. And Delta State is known to be a very stronghold of PDP. And surprisingly, Atiku was able to harvest the governor and the former governor and all the political elements in that state. Even though currently, as we speak, there are so many politicians in that state who are saying, we are not going with you to APC. That is telling Okowa, telling Sheriff Obaware, that we are not going with you to APC because you are taking us to where we do not know. We don't know anything about APC. We equally saw in Akwa Ibom, talking about the governor, Eno, who recently made it very clear that he is going to APC. And he have said that anyone that does not know by now that he's going to APC must not be serious. But surprisingly, what was surprising is we saw a news that made it around the other day where he sanctioned or reportedly sanctioned the reporter of the correspondence of Channel Television. Of course, before then, we heard the news that made it around where he threatened that any commissioner that refused to follow into APC will be sacked. But perhaps that didn't go down well with the governor, who for obvious reasons has reportedly decided to sanction channel correspondent by sending him out of the government house. We saw a similar thing happen in United States of America under the first tenure of Donald Trump, though that one has to do with a media house where they have to go to court to argue it and argue it out, and the court asks the man to be reinstated. But because the country is a country that runs the rule of law, the man was actually reinstated. But I don't think that will happen in Nigeria. Hence, the governor have given the man a quick notice from government house. I don't think anything will bring the man back, the channel correspondent back to the government house. But going into 2027, looking at it the way it is, I think Nigerians must prevail on the system to do the right thing. And this is where I was able to expect the likes of Atiku, the likes of P2B, the likes of Kwankwaso, the likes of Lamido, former governor of Jigawa State, the likes of Erufai, former governor of Kaduna State, to come together and put necessary pressure on INEC. The reason is not far-fetched, because the way it is today, INEC have the discretion to determine the mode of transmission of election results. And the way and manner they applied it in the last election, talking about 2023 election, was a bane upon which stakeholders, party leaders, particularly of Labour Party and its candidate P2B, PDP and its candidate Atiku Abubakar, contested the election result of that 2023 to Supreme Court. And as we speak, that status quo is still sustained, a situation where INEC had the discretion to determine the mode of transmission of the election results. And if we go into the election, if we go into the next round of election of 2027 with that same status quo, I'm going to tell you that we are likely going to come back to sing the same song. So I'm of the view that the Electoral Act would have been amended in such a way that INEC would no longer parade that discretionary power. Let that discretionary power be taken away from INEC, and let us have some specifics in the Electoral Act that compares, that mandates INEC to say you must transmit election results electronically, so that the power and the tendency of the ruling class or the political class at the center to manipulate will be reduced. Because the moment you reduce the level of human interference, of course, the power or the potential to manipulate the process will actually be reduced. Because we understand that the way it stands, the president Of course, there's a saying that he who pays the piper dictates the tone. The president appoints all the resident allied commissioners in INEC. He appoints the INEC chairman. He appoints the police IG. He appoints the director of GSS or director general of GSS. And all these are agencies of government involved in election management. I'm not advocating that the appointment of the IG, the police IGS, the director general of GSS, the chief service chiefs should be reviewed. But my own point is the mode of funding INEC should be reviewed. Let us have a first-line charge. A situation where INEC is funded directly from budgetary allocation in terms of maybe if the constitution says SY amount for SY revenue should go into INEC. Not that the INEC chairman and INEC as a body will be going cap in hand to the president to ask for fund. Of course, that makes them susceptible to be manipulated by the executive. That makes them a stooge of the executive. And of course, any Nigerian politician will always latch on that as an advantage to use to manipulate the system. So I think if you look at FEMA talking about Federal Road Maintenance Agency, its funding is from first line charge. I think it comes from the revenue that accrues to government from education fund, a particular percentage, whether 1% or so, I'm not very sure, but I think it's first line charge. So on that note, nobody will go, FEMA do not need to go to federal government every month periodically to start begging for fund. They know that once every month, this money that is accruing to them is from source of a government, source of revenue, and is statutory, is constitutional. Nobody is telling anybody giving money or don't give money. So I think that is what we need in INEC, in addition to the electoral act that needs to be amended to reduce the level of human interference. Because the normal politician will allow the people to vote. Where they start the manipulation proper is in the process of collation. We understand that in the process of collation, after the election, the result will be counted and the votes will be entered in from EC8A. From where, if they were to transmit election results electronically, the honest staffs, who are obviously, of course, the personnel of the youth service corps, will snap the from EC8A and send to IRF. By our standard, all the stakeholders are supposed to have access to that IRF, whether as an individual, as an electorate, whether as a political party, as an election observer, whether locally or internationally. They were supposed to have access to that server, follow the result as it's coming in, even have your own situation room, collect your own result in your own situation room. And at the end of the day, it's expected to tally with what INEC is doing in their own situation room, since it's from the same source. But this will didn't see happen in the 2023 presidential election because INEC gave us excuse of network glitch. We were not satisfied with that network glitch, but as we have it, Supreme Court have since validated the election of Senator Atiku as the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So even if one is not satisfied, one have to submit to the supremacy of the ruling of Supreme Court. That does not mean that Supreme Court judgment is infallible, because one of the judges who have retired have made it very clear that they are final because they are final, not because their decision is infallible. But let me let you go at this point. We hope to conclude this conversation. It's a developing conversation. But meanwhile, this is Satellite Media and I'm Mr. Matthew. Thank you very much for your time.